It was a quiet Saturday morning when Timmy's day began. The sun was just peeking over the horizon, casting golden beams through his bedroom window. The birds were singing their early morning tunes, and the world outside seemed peaceful, but inside, Timmy's mind was buzzing with excitement. His parents had gone away on vacation, leaving him with his grandmother. Although he loved his grandma, there was one thing on Timmy's mind: adventure. As Timmy sat in his favorite chair by the window, he stared out at the vast woods behind his house. The forest had always intrigued him. It was mysterious, full of shadows and wonders. Many times, Timmy had wondered what secrets lay hidden within its thick, towering trees. But no matter how much he imagined, he never dared to venture inside.
Until now.
His grandma, a kind woman with gentle eyes and a calming presence, was downstairs in the kitchen. Timmy could hear her humming a soft tune as she prepared breakfast. But this morning, Timmy wasn't hungry for pancakes or eggs. He was hungry for something much more exciting. Later that day, after a long walk around the garden with Grandma, Timmy ventured into the attic to search for something new to do. The attic was filled with old furniture, dusty books, and forgotten treasures from the past. Timmy loved spending time up here. It felt like exploring an ancient world where stories and secrets waited to be discovered. As Timmy sifted through a pile of old boxes, his eyes landed on something unusual. Beneath a pile of old newspapers, he spotted a dusty wooden chest. The chest looked old, almost ancient. His heart skipped a beat as he carefully lifted the lid. Inside, wrapped in a faded red cloth, was an envelope sealed with a golden emblem. Timmy's fingers trembled as he broke the seal. The letter inside was written on thick, parchment-like paper. It had a message written in elegant handwriting. To the brave and curious Timmy, an adventure awaits you in the heart of the enchanted forest. Deep within its trees lies a mystery that only someone with a brave heart and a curious mind can solve. Follow the path that calls to you, and you will find the secrets you seek. Your journey begins tomorrow at dawn. May the winds guide your way. The keepers of the forest. Timmy stared at the letter in disbelief. Could this be real? Was someone really inviting him on an adventure? His heart raced with excitement, and his mind raced with possibilities. This was his chance, his moment. The enchanted forest had always been a place of wonder and stories, but now it was calling to him. He could hardly wait to tell Grandma. But as he looked around the attic, he realized there was no one to tell just yet. It was still early, and Grandma was busy downstairs. Timmy carefully folded the letter and tucked it into his pocket, his thoughts swirling with ideas of what awaited him in the forest. The more he thought about it, the more he felt that he had to go. This wasn't just some silly fantasy. This was an opportunity to do something extraordinary. He had always dreamed of being a hero in a grand story, and now, it seemed, his chance had come. That night, as he lay in bed staring up at the ceiling, Timmy couldn't stop thinking about the letter. The forest was waiting for him, and at dawn, he would step into its magical world. The next morning, as the first light of day broke through the trees, Timmy packed a small bag, grabbed a flashlight, and whispered goodbye to Grandma, who was still asleep. With a heart full of excitement and a mind full of wonder, Timmy stepped outside. The cool morning air kissed his face as he made his way to the edge of the woods. He could feel it, the magic in the air. The forest was calling to him. Timmy took a deep breath and stepped into the trees, ready to begin his journey. The moment Timmy stepped past the edge of his backyard and into the forest, everything around him seemed to shift. The familiar sounds of his neighborhood, cars passing by, the chatter of people, the hum of distant music, disappeared. In their place, the soft whispers of the wind through the trees filled the air. The forest smelled earthy, rich with a scent of pine and damp leaves. Timmy had always admired the forest from a distance, but now that he was inside, it felt different, alive in a way he had never imagined. The trees towered above him like ancient guardians, their branches swaying gently as if they were greeting him. The sunlight filtered through the leaves, creating a golden carpet of light on the forest floor. He walked carefully, following the winding path that seemed to beckon him forward. Every step felt like he was walking deeper into a world of secrets and wonder. Birds with vibrant feathers flitted through the trees, their songs filling the air, and strange flowers bloomed at his feet, glowing with soft, shimmering colors. As Timmy walked, he began to feel like he was not alone. A rustling sound in the bushes caught his attention. He paused, his heart racing with curiosity. A small, fluffy squirrel popped out from behind a tree, its bushy tail twitching with excitement. "Hello there," the squirrel said in a high-pitched, cheerful voice. Timmy jumped back in surprise. Did you just talk?" The squirrel tilted its head and grinned. "Why, of course I did. I'm Nutty, your guide to the magical forest. Didn't expect to meet me so soon, did you?" Timmy blinked. "A talking squirrel? This is really happening, isn't it?" "Absolutely," Nutty said with a chuckle. "You're in the Enchanted Woods now, Timmy. Things are always a little unusual around here." Timmy smiled. This was exactly what he had hoped for. "So, what's next?" "Well," Nutty said, "there's a lot to show you, but first things first, you'll need to know the rules of the forest." Timmy nodded, eager to learn more. Nutty seemed to know everything about the place. Nutty's voice took on a more serious tone as he began to explain the rules. "There are a few important things you should know. First, the forest is full of magic, but it only works for those with pure hearts. If you're kind and brave, you'll find the magic will help you. If not, well, let's just say the forest can be a tricky place." Timmy listened closely. The idea of magic made his heart race with excitement, but he also knew it meant he had to be careful. He couldn't just rush through the forest blindly. "Second," Nutty continued, "never stray from the path for too long. The forest has a way of shifting. If you get lost, it might take days or even weeks to find your way back." Timmy nodded. "Got it. Stay on the path." "And third," Nutty added, his eyes twinkling, "always trust your instincts. The forest speaks in ways you may not always understand. Listen carefully, and you'll find your way." Timmy thought about these rules for a moment. They seemed simple enough, but something about them made him feel as though the forest was alive and watching him. He had to be careful, but he also knew that with Nutty's help, he could succeed. "So, where do we start?" Timmy asked, his curiosity growing. Nutty's eyes sparkled. "Follow me, Timmy. The first stop is just ahead. And trust me, it's something you'll never forget." As they walked, the trees seemed to get taller, their trunks thicker and more gnarled. The sunlight dimmed, casting the forest floor in a cool, shadowy glow. Timmy felt a strange tingling in the air, as though something extraordinary was about to happen. They turned a bend in the path, and Timmy gasped. Ahead of them stood a massive tree, its bark shimmering in the light like it was dusted with gold. The tree was unlike any Timmy had ever seen before. Its trunk was wide enough for 5 people to hug at once, and its roots spread out like an ancient, tangled web. At the base of the tree was a small pool of water, so clear that Timmy could see every pebble on the bottom. But what caught his attention wasn't the tree or the water, it was the air around it. It shimmered with tiny sparks of light, floating in the air like fireflies, but brighter, almost like stars. "This," Nutty said, "is the heart of the forest. The magic flows from here, and all life in the forest depends on it." Timmy stepped closer, mesmerized by the glowing lights. He knelt beside the water, reaching out to touch it. As his fingers brushed the surface, the water rippled, sending a shock of warmth up his arm. The lights around the tree flickered, then swirled together, forming a single beam of light that shot into the sky. Timmy's heart raced. He knew something incredible was happening. "That's the forest's magic calling you, Timmy," Nutty said. "It knows you're here. It knows you're ready." As the beam of light faded into the sky, Timmy stood up, his heart racing with excitement. He could feel the forest alive around him, humming with energy. "So, what now?" Timmy asked, his voice full of wonder. Nutty grinned. "Now we keep going. The real adventure is just beginning, and you're going to need all the courage you've got." There are many more mysteries to discover, and the forest has a way of testing those who seek its secrets.
But don't worry, Timmy.
I'll be with you every step of the way. Timmy smiled, feeling more confident than ever. He was ready. This was the adventure he had always dreamed of. And with Nutty by his side, he knew he was in good hands. Together, they continued down the path, heading deeper into the enchanted woods. Timmy had only walked a short distance when Nutty stopped in his tracks. Timmy nearly bumped into him as the squirrel hopped onto a rock and turned to face him. "Now that we've seen the heart of the forest," Nutty said, his eyes twinkling with excitement, "it's time to get serious. There's something important I need to tell you, Timmy. Something that could change everything." Timmy's pulse quickened. "What is it, Nutty?" "The crystal," Nutty said in a whisper, as though the trees themselves were listening. "The crystal that controls the forest's magic. It was lost a long time ago, hidden away by the guardians to protect it from those who would misuse its power. If we find it, the forest will be saved. If we don't—" He trailed off, but the meaning was clear. Without the crystal, the forest would lose its magic, its life force, and everything that made it special. Timmy nodded, his heart heavy. "Where do we start looking for it?" Nutty scurried up a tree and looked down at Timmy with a smile. "That's the tricky part. The crystal was hidden in the farthest reaches of the forest. No one knows exactly where it is. But there's a clue, and it's said to be hidden in the Cave of Echoes." Timmy felt a flutter in his chest. A cave? That sounded dangerous, but it also sounded like the kind of adventure he had been waiting for. "Is the cave far?" Timmy asked, scanning the path ahead. "Not too far, but it's not exactly easy to get to," Nutty replied. "We'll have to cross the River of Reflection and make our way through the Forest of Shadows. The cave is deep inside that part of the forest, and no one goes there unless they're prepared for what they might face." Timmy's excitement grew. The more Nutty spoke, the more he felt like this journey was something truly magical and something he couldn't turn back from. "I'm ready," Timmy said, determination in his voice. Nutty nodded approvingly.
"Good.
"Because the journey ahead won't be an easy one. But I think you've got the heart for it." After walking for what felt like hours, the path grew steeper and the trees began to thin out. The air was cooler now, and the forest had a quieter, more solemn feel to it. They arrived at a clearing where the ground was soft with moss, and a shimmering river stretched out before them. Timmy gasped. The river wasn't just any river, it was beautiful, almost otherworldly. The water sparkled with an eerie glow, and it reflected the trees and sky like a mirror. "This is the River of Reflection," Nutty explained, his tone serious. "Anyone who tries to cross it has to face their own reflection. But the river doesn't show your face, Timmy. It shows what's inside. You'll see your deepest fears, your biggest doubts." Timmy swallowed hard. He didn't know why, but a chill ran down his spine. He had always been a brave boy, but now, standing before the river, he wasn't so sure. I don't know if I want to see that," Timmy admitted. Nutty's expression softened. "It's okay to be scared. But facing what you fear is the only way to move forward. You'll never find the crystal if you don't cross this river, Timmy." Timmy took a deep breath. He had made it this far, and he wasn't about to turn back now. "I'll do it," he said firmly, though his heart pounded in his chest. The river was silent as Timmy stepped closer to its edge. The surface of the water was still, like glass, and his reflection appeared clearly, staring back at him. But something about the reflection felt wrong. At first, he saw himself, Timmy, the curious boy with messy brown hair and wide, eager eyes. But as he looked closer, the reflection began to change. His face twisted with doubt, and the image of Timmy seemed smaller, weaker. He was trembling, uncertain, and afraid. "Is this really who I am?" Timmy whispered to himself. "Am I really that scared?" As if in response, the river shimmered and rippled, and Timmy's reflection changed again. This time, the reflection was filled with courage. The boy in the water stood tall, his face set with determination. "You are not afraid," the reflection seemed to say. "You have everything you need inside you." Timmy stared at the reflection, his heart slowly filling with strength.
He wasn't weak.
He wasn't scared. The Timmy in the water was brave and full of potential, just like the real Timmy. With newfound confidence, he took a step into the river. The water was cool but welcoming, and as he stepped further, he felt the weight of his fears lift. The river didn't fight him, it accepted him, letting him cross without resistance. When Timmy reached the other side, Nutty was waiting for him with a proud smile. "Well done, Timmy," Nutty cheered. "You faced your reflection, and now you're ready for whatever comes next." Timmy looked back at the river of reflection, feeling different somehow. He had crossed more than just water. He had crossed a barrier inside himself. With the river behind them, Timmy and Nutty ventured deeper into the forest. The air grew thicker, the shadows longer. The trees loomed above them like silent sentinels, their branches twisting into strange shapes. "This is the Forest of Shadows," Nutty said quietly. "It's a place where the shadows come alive. They can play tricks on you, make you see things that aren't real. But you've got to keep your focus, Timmy. If you lose sight of what's real, the shadows can pull you off the path." Timmy nodded, his mind racing. He knew this was going to be tricky, but he wasn't about to let the shadows scare him. He had made it this far, and he wasn't going to give up now. As they walked, Timmy began to notice the shadows moving. At first, he thought it was just the wind, but then he saw it. Shapes, strange, twisted shapes, darted between the trees. They seemed to follow him, always just out of sight. "Don't look at them too closely," Nutty warned. "They'll try to confuse you. Just keep walking." But Timmy couldn't help it. One shadow darted out from the trees, and this time, it didn't retreat. It lingered, stretching out toward him like a dark hand. Timmy's heart raced. He knew he had to face this. But how? He took a deep breath, remembering what Nutty had told him. The shadows were just illusions. So, Timmy closed his eyes and steadied his breath. He focused on his goal, finding the crystal. When he opened his eyes again, the shadow was gone. He smiled to himself, feeling stronger. "I can do this," he whispered. The forest of shadows seemed endless. Every step Timmy took was followed by a long, eerie silence, and the shadows around him seemed to stretch and twist like living creatures. His heart pounded as he walked, but with each step, the whispering fear that had once gripped him began to fade. He could feel the forest watching him, but he refused to let it distract him. There was a goal ahead, the Cave of Echoes, and the lost crystal within. Nutty, hopping from branch to branch above him, was silent for the first time. His usual chatter seemed to vanish, replaced by a quiet tension in the air. They had been walking for what felt like hours, and still, no end was in sight. "I think we're almost there," Nutty said suddenly, breaking the silence. "We're getting closer to the heart of the Forest of Shadows. But the path ahead won't be easy. The Cave of Echoes has a way of testing anyone who seeks the crystal." Timmy swallowed nervously. "What kind of test?" he asked. Nutty paused, glancing down at him from the branch he was perched on. "The cave doesn't give its secrets easily. To enter, you must face a challenge that will test your courage, your wit, and your heart. It will take everything you have to succeed." Timmy felt a surge of nervousness, but he nodded. He had already crossed the river of reflection and faced the shadows. This challenge couldn't be any harder, could it? "Trust me, Timmy," Nutty continued, his voice gentle but firm. "The forest has its own way of revealing what's truly inside you." After a while, the path began to slope downward. The trees grew even thicker, their roots twisting and tangling in the ground. The air grew heavier, as if the very forest itself was holding its breath. Ahead, Timmy could just make out the dark opening of the Cave of Echoes, nestled between two towering rock walls. He took a deep breath. The mouth of the cave seemed to swallow up the light, casting everything in shadow. There was no way to know what lay inside, but Timmy felt a strange pull, a sense of destiny, as though the cave had been waiting for him all along. "I think we're here," Timmy said quietly, looking up at Nutty, who had landed on a nearby rock. Nutty gave him a determined look. "This is it, Timmy. The cave will speak to you. and it won't give up its secrets without a challenge. Are you ready? Timmy nodded, his heart racing. He wasn't sure what was waiting for him inside, but he had come this far. He couldn't turn back now. The moment Timmy stepped inside the Cave of Echoes, the temperature dropped. The walls of the cave seemed to shimmer, reflecting the dim light from the entrance in strange, flickering patterns. As he ventured deeper, the echo of his footsteps rang out, growing louder and louder with each step. Suddenly, a voice broke through the silence. It was low, soft, and seemed to come from all around him. Who dares to enter the Cave of Echoes? Timmy froze, his eyes wide. The voice wasn't coming from anyone he could see. It was as if the cave itself was speaking to him. He opened his mouth to answer, but found himself unable to speak. The voice continued, growing louder, more demanding. Why do you seek the crystal, young one? What makes you worthy of its power? Timmy felt a shiver run down his spine. He was alone in this cave, but somehow, it felt like the cave itself was alive, testing him. He had to answer. I seek the crystal because the forest needs it, Timmy said, his voice steady. I believe in the magic of the forest, and I know that without it, everything here will die. The voice fell silent for a moment, and then it spoke again, this time softer, almost gentle. You speak of the forest's need, but what of your own? Why do you truly wish to find the crystal?
Timmy thought about it.
The crystal wasn't just a source of magic for the forest. It was a symbol of his journey, of his growth. I want to find it because I want to prove that I can be brave. I want to show myself that I can face my fears and help protect the things that matter. I want to be someone who does what's right, even when it's hard. For a long time, there was only silence. Then, the voice spoke once more, its tone approving. Very well, Timmy. You have answered truthfully, and for that you may pass. But know this, the forest will always test you. You must remain true to yourself, or the path will become more difficult. Timmy took a deep breath, his heart swelling with a mixture of relief and pride. He had passed the first test, he had answered honestly, and the cave had accepted him. He was one step closer to the crystal. As Timmy continued deeper into the cave, the walls around him seemed to shift. The flickering shadows that danced along the walls began to take shape, visions from his past, moments of doubt and fear that he had buried in his heart. He saw himself as a young boy, too afraid to climb the tallest tree in his backyard. He saw himself hesitating to speak up in class, worrying about what others might think. The echoes of those past fears filled the cave, growing louder and more overwhelming with each step. Timmy felt his breath catch in his throat. These memories, these fears, had always haunted him, lingering in the background of his mind. But now, they were right in front of him, impossible to ignore. Look at yourself, the voice in the cave said. Do you still believe you can overcome these fears? Or will they consume you? Timmy stopped, his hands trembling. He could feel the weight of his past failures pressing down on him. He wanted to turn back, to run out of the cave and escape from the painful memories. But then he remembered something Nutty had told him earlier. The forest only reveals its secrets to those with pure hearts. And deep down, Timmy knew what that meant. He had to face these fears, face them head-on, if he was ever going to move forward. With a deep breath, Timmy closed his eyes and spoke to the echoes. I'm not afraid of you anymore. I'm stronger than I was before, and I won't let my past hold me back. As soon as the words left his lips, the shadows on the walls began to fade. The cave grew quiet again, and for the first time since entering, Timmy felt truly at peace. With the echoes behind him, Timmy took another step forward. The path ahead was still dark, but now, it felt like the cave was guiding him, not testing him. He could feel the presence of the crystal, just beyond the next bend. But Timmy knew that there would be more challenges to face. The forest wasn't done with him yet. There would be more tests of his heart, his courage, and his will. But for now, he was ready. He had proven himself to the cave, and he was one step closer to unlocking the forest's greatest secret. The deeper Timmy ventured into the Cave of Echoes, the more intense the magic seemed to grow. The air felt thick with energy, and every step he took echoed off the walls, as though the very cave was aware of his presence. He could sense that the crystal was near. He was close, closer than he had ever been. But there was one more challenge ahead. Suddenly, the path before him opened up into a large, cavernous chamber. The ceiling stretched high above him, and glowing crystals embedded in the stone cast eerie, shimmering light across the space. But what caught Timmy's attention wasn't the beauty of the crystals or the grandeur of the chamber. It was the enormous river that flowed through the center of the cavern. The river was wide, its water glowing with a soft, otherworldly light. It flowed with a strange, almost hypnotic current, moving silently and swiftly through the darkness. On the far side of the river, Timmy could just make out the outline of a massive stone door. There, behind it, was the crystal he sought. But between him and the crystal stood the river of reflection. Timmy stepped forward, his heart pounding. He was so close, he could practically feel the crystal in his hands. Yet the river seemed to hum with energy, as if it were alive, waiting to test him one last time. Nutty, perched on a rock near the riverbank, spoke up. "The river of reflection is different from any other challenge you've faced, Timmy. It doesn't show you your past like the Cave of Echoes. No, this river shows you your future." Timmy frowned. "My future?" "Indeed," Nutty said, nodding solemnly. "The river will show you the person you will become if you dare to look. But be careful, Timmy. What you see in the river may not always be what you expect. It can show you your greatest fears or your deepest desires. It can twist the truth. But it will always be a reflection of what lies ahead. You must decide if you will trust what you see or create your own path." Timmy took a deep breath, his eyes fixed on the glowing water. What could the river possibly show him? What did it mean to see his future? His mind raced with possibilities, and his pulse quickened as he realized that the river held more than just an obstacle. It held answers, or perhaps even more questions. He stepped closer to the riverbank, feeling a strange pull toward the water. His reflection appeared on the surface of the river, clear and still. But as he gazed into it, the image began to change, shifting and twisting before his eyes. At first, he saw himself as a boy, just a regular boy, standing in the forest, determined to find the crystal. But then the image morphed. The boy in the reflection grew older. He was no longer the curious, brave Timmy standing at the river's edge. Now, he saw a man who looked defeated, his eyes dull with exhaustion, his shoulders slumped with the weight of regret. The older Timmy stood in a dark forest, the trees around him withered and lifeless. The magical creatures of the forest were nowhere to be seen, and the air was thick with an oppressive silence. The man's face was lined with sorrow, and his expression was one of deep regret. "No," Timmy whispered to himself. "This isn't right. This can't be me." But as he watched, the reflection of the older Timmy reached out with a trembling hand, as though beckoning him to follow. "Do not make the same mistakes I did," the older Timmy's reflection seemed to say, his voice echoing across the river. "I thought I could change the world, but I lost myself along the way. Don't forget who you are, Timmy. Don't let the forest's power consume you." Timmy's heart pounded in his chest. What was this vision? Was this truly his future? He didn't want to be the person standing alone in that empty forest, haunted by his past mistakes. But the reflection of himself seemed so real, so vivid, that Timmy couldn't shake the feeling that it was a warning. Timmy took a step back, his head spinning. The reflection of the older Timmy seemed to fade and shift once again, this time into a new vision. The new reflection showed him in a completely different light. In this vision, Timmy was older, but this time, he was standing in a vibrant, thriving forest full of life and magic. The trees were tall and strong, their leaves shimmering in the sunlight. The animals of the forest surrounded him, and the creatures from his adventures, Nutty, the glowing butterflies, and the wise old owl, were all there, cheering him on. In this reflection, Timmy's face was filled with joy, his eyes bright with hope and purpose. He stood tall, a leader of the forest, someone who had learned from his experiences and grown stronger because of them. There were no shadows in this vision, just light, warmth, and peace. Now this, Timmy whispered to himself, this is the future I want. The voice of the river echoed once again, its tone soft and gentle this time. Timmy, the river shows you only what lies ahead, but you are the one who chooses which path to take. Your future is not set in stone. The choices you make, the actions you take, will shape who you become. Will you become the man in the shadowed forest, full of regret and sorrow? Or will you choose the light, the life, and the magic that lies ahead? Timmy stood still for a moment, absorbing the weight of the river's words. His mind swirled with doubt and fear, but in his heart, he knew what he had to do. He wasn't afraid of what the future might hold. He was ready to shape it himself. He stepped forward, crossing the river without hesitation. As his foot touched the water, the glowing surface parted around him, letting him pass through as though the river had been waiting for him to choose. When Timmy reached the other side of the river, he felt a sense of calm wash over him. The vision of the older Timmy, lost and regretful, was gone, replaced by the image of the older Timmy standing tall, leading the forest toward a brighter future. He had made his choice. Ahead, the massive stone door loomed, just beyond the river. It was covered in ancient runes, glowing softly with the same magical light that had filled the forest. Timmy's heart raced as he approached the door. This was it, the final step. Beyond this door lay the crystal, and with it, the power to restore the forest's magic. But Timmy knew that his journey wasn't just about finding the crystal. It was about the choices he had made, the person he had become, and the lessons he had learned along the way. He was ready to face whatever came next. With a deep breath, Timmy placed his hand on the stone door. Timmy stood in front of the massive stone door, his hand still resting on the cold surface. He could feel the faint hum of magic in the air, vibrating through his fingertips. The river had shown him his potential, but now was time for the final test. Beyond this door lay the crystal, and with it, the power to restore balance to the forest. But Timmy knew the journey ahead wasn't just about finding the crystal. It was about the lessons he had learned along the way and how he would face whatever challenges came next. Taking a deep breath, Timmy pushed against the door. It creaked open slowly, revealing a narrow passageway that led into the heart of the cave. The air was damp, and the walls were covered with strange, glowing markings. Timmy could hear his heartbeat in his ears, the only sound in the stillness of the cave. "Nutty," Timmy called quietly, glancing over his shoulder. But the squirrel was nowhere to be seen. The path ahead was dark and uncertain. He stepped forward, his footsteps echoing in the silence. The narrow passage opened up into a vast chamber, far larger than any of the caves Timmy had seen so far. In the center of the room stood a pedestal, and on it, a glowing crystal. Its light pulsed gently, as though it was alive. It was the crystal he had been searching for. But as Timmy moved toward the pedestal, the air around him shifted. A cold wind swept through the chamber, carrying with it an eerie whisper. The shadows in the room deepened, stretching out from the corners, swirling in the dim light. Timmy froze, his heart racing. He felt a chill crawl up his spine, as if the shadows themselves were alive. He glanced around, his eyes widening as he saw the shadows begin to take form. The shadows twisted and coiled, becoming shapes and figures that seemed to move on their own. Some were tall and menacing, others small and sinister. They loomed over Timmy, their eyes glowing with a cold, unnatural light. A low growl echoed through the chamber, and one of the shadows, tall and hunched, stepped forward. "You've come far, Timmy," the shadow hissed, its voice like a cold wind. "But this is where your journey ends. The crystal is mine." Timmy's breath caught in his throat. The figure before him was a creature of pure shadow, its body shifting and changing as if it were made of smoke. Its eyes glowed with an unnatural hunger, and its claws scraped the stone floor with a menacing sound. Timmy stepped back instinctively, but the shadow moved forward, blocking his path. It grinned, its mouth full of sharp teeth. "You cannot have the crystal," the shadow said, its voice low and mocking. "It was meant to stay hidden, far from the reach of those who are weak of heart. Timmy's mind raced. He couldn't let this creature take the crystal, not after everything he had been through to get here. But how could he defeat something that was made of pure darkness? How could he face something that seemed invincible? The creature's form shifted again, and now it was surrounded by a swarm of smaller shadows. They crawled along the floor, their twisted forms skittering toward Timmy. The room seemed to darken even further, the shadows closing in on him from all sides. The air grew heavier, as though the very walls were pressing in around him. But then, in that moment of fear, Timmy remembered something, the lesson he had learned in the Forest of Shadows. The shadows, no matter how dark or intimidating, were just illusions. They couldn't hurt him unless he let them. He closed his eyes for a moment, taking a deep breath. He could feel the warmth of the forest around him, the magic that flowed through every tree and creature. He was not alone. He had come this far because of the choices he had made, the strength he had found within himself. The shadows were just obstacles, reflections of his fears. But he had the power to overcome them. Opening his eyes, Timmy stood tall and stepped forward, his voice steady and strong. "I am not afraid of you," he said firmly. "You may be shadows, but I know what I'm capable of. I know who I am." The shadows paused, their twisted forms faltering for a moment. The creature before him snarled, its eyes narrowing. "You think you can defeat me?" it growled. "You're just a boy." "I'm more than just a boy," Timmy said, his voice growing stronger. "I'm someone who believes in the magic of the forest. I'm someone who's learned to face my fears, and I'm not going to let you stand in my way." With each word, the shadows seemed to waver, their forms flickering as if they were losing their power. Timmy took another step forward, his heart pounding with determination. The creature shrieked in anger and lunged at him, but Timmy didn't flinch. He knew what he had to do. The forest's magic surged within him, and as if by instinct, Timmy raised his hands in front of him. The shadows recoiled, retreating from the light that now shone from within him. The crystal on the pedestal pulsed brighter, responding to Timmy's call. It was as if the crystal was sensing his strength, his courage. With a final, powerful push, Timmy summoned the forest's magic. The shadows dissolved, disappearing into the air like smoke. The creature howled in frustration before it too vanished, leaving nothing behind but the stillness of the room. As the last shadow faded, the light in the chamber returned, brighter and warmer than before. Timmy stood in the center of the room, breathing heavily but victorious. He had done it. The crystal was his, and the forest's magic was restored. Slowly, he approached the pedestal. The crystal gleamed with a soft, radiant light, its power filling the room with warmth and life. Timmy reached out, his fingers brushing the cool surface of the crystal. As soon as his touch made contact, the crystal glowed even brighter, sending a shock of energy through his entire body. Timmy gasped as the power of the crystal surged through him. He felt the forest's magic coursing through his veins, filling him with strength and purpose. The forest was alive, and so was he. He had completed his journey. The crystal's glow began to fade, but the warmth remained, filling the room with an energy that felt pure and whole. Timmy stood in the chamber for a few moments, letting the magic of the crystal settle within him. He had faced the darkness, overcome his fears, and found the strength to protect the forest. The crystal had chosen him, not because he was the strongest, but because he was willing to fight for what was right. With the crystal in his hands, Timmy turned and made his way back to the entrance of the cave. The shadows had been vanquished, and the forest's magic had been restored. He was ready to return home, but he knew that the journey wasn't over. There would always be more challenges to face, more magic to discover, and more lessons to learn. As he stepped out of the cave and back into the heart of the forest, Timmy felt a deep sense of peace. The trees around him were alive again, their leaves shimmering in the sunlight. The creatures of the forest were free, their magic restored. Timmy smiled to himself. He had found the crystal, but more importantly, he had found the courage, the strength, and the wisdom to protect the forest for as long as it needed him.